On October 13th, 1972, the Andes Mountains. A plane shatters against a mountainside, and what remains is not an accident. It is a sealed world, snow to the horizon, wind sharp enough to cut skin, radiation that burns even though the air is ice, and in the middle of it all, a white cylinder, the fuselage. Inside are boys, survivors, not explorers, not soldiers. They are an amateur rugby team, in city clothes, with no high-altitude gear, no real food, and no map. The Andes are not planning to kill them quickly. The Andes plan to kill them slowly, day after day, which turns it into psychological martyrdom because it forces you to make decisions in extreme situations, under extreme conditions. Because surviving is not just breathing. Surviving is choosing. Who leads? What gets rationed? Who goes out? Who comes back? And what you are willing to do when there is no hope of rescue. Today, I'm going to tell you why the miracle of the Andes was not enduring 72 days. The miracle of the Andes was creating a micro-society with rules, roles, and impossible decisions until they managed to save themselves. 45 people on board, 16 survive, 62 days on the mountain, 72 without food, without real shelter, without oxygen, with the injured, with the dead inches away, and with an invisible clock. At every dawn, someone can die, or the group can break apart. They were not found. They found the way out. At first, there is an illusion that keeps them alive. The idea that they are close to Chile, close to a road, close to someone. And that illusion is not born from hope. It is born from false information. The plane had been flying with a positional error, an error that made them believe they had already crossed the worst of it. In their minds, the mountain is not a prison. It is a small obstacle, small, until they look around and realize there is nothing. Only white, only silence, only altitude. They did not survive by luck. They survived because they turned chaos into a system. They did 3 things that do not sound heroic, but are literally social engineering. 1, they turned the fuselage into shelter. 2, they turned scrap into tools. And 3, they turned a moral dilemma into a practical pact. And that pact is the point where the story stops being an accident and becomes a decision. Because in the Andes, you do not die only from cold. You die from disorder, from small arguments that become wars, from rationing badly, from having no shifts, from having no leader when night falls. But the group that crashed in the Andes had something other groups do not have: team identity, discipline, hierarchy, camaraderie. The idea that no one gets left behind, even if that no one is no longer breathing. To understand this, you first have to understand the rules of the world they fell into. The altitude steals your oxygen and your judgment. You think slowly, you sleep badly, your head throbs, you panic for no reason. The cold is not weather, it is a predator. It gets in through your clothes, through your wounds, through your mouth when you try to swallow snow. Snow is a trap. It reflects the sun, burns your eyes, dehydrates you. And if you fall asleep, it shuts you off. There is no food. And the body, when there is no food, starts to condition the soul. First it asks, then it demands. And in the end, it takes. If you wait for rescue, time kills you. If you move without a plan, the mountain kills you. In this panorama, what do? At the moment of the crash, everything vibrates. Someone asks if it is normal to fly this close. No one answers. One jolt, another. And then, suddenly, the mountain appears. Too close, too big. You hear metal against rock. You hear screams. You hear silence. When the picture returns, it is no longer an airplane. It is a metal tunnel ripped open at the front, like a broken mouth, filled with snow and blood. Instant deaths. injured people who cannot move, fractures, cuts. And the first problem, night falls fast in the Cordillera. If you do not make shelter today, there will be no tomorrow. So they crawl inside the fuselage, seal it as best they can, press against one another, and try not to lose heat. The fuselage is white, white on white. From above to a search plane, that white blends in. It does not stand out. It does not cry out. It creates no contrast, and them down below, without knowing it, become invisible. During the first days, passive hope still exists. Hold on, wait, look at the sky, because if they rescue you, you do not have to cross anything. You just have to survive. Just survive. But then, around day 11, they manage to hear a radio. And what they hear is not a promise. It is a sentence. The search is called off. No one is coming. And that is the exact moment when the word rescue changes meaning. It no longer means they rescue us. It starts to mean we rescue ourselves. And when external authority goes dark, the group has two paths. Either it comes apart or it organizes. That is when the rules begin. Shifts, decisions, roles. Who gathers snow? Who melts it? Who tends the wounded? Who goes out to explore even though the sun burns the eyes? And that is when the real enemy reveals itself as a three-headed monster: the mountain, the body, and false information. Because they still believe they are close, and that belief is dangerous, because it makes you take bad decisions with enormous confidence. They go out. They walk over snow that looks firm, and suddenly, it gives way. They sink to the waist. They come back. They look at one another. No one says aloud what everyone is thinking. We are lost, and in the meantime, hunger starts to speak. Not like a roar, like a whisper that tells you, just one more day without food, and you'll lose strength. 2 days, and you'll lose your mind. 3, and you'll break. And now we reach the dilemma everyone knows, but almost no one understands from the inside. It is not a horror scene. It is a logistical discussion. Because the question is not, do we want to do it? The certainty is, if we do not do it, we all die. And what is terrifying is that in a universe this profoundly cold, even your morality starts to freeze. Not because you are a bad person, but because biology does not negotiate. So they turn it into a pact to live, to tell the story, to return. And that pact, as horrible as it sounds from a warm seat, is what keeps the group together instead of tearing it apart. October 29th, 1972. It is nighttime. They are inside the fuselage. The wind shifts. There is a sound that does not sound like wind. It sounds like something coming down on top of them. And then, an avalanche. Snow pouring in like cement. Total darkness. People trapped. Asphyxiation. Minutes that feel like hours. Hands searching for faces. Gasps of air that are not enough. And when they finally manage to get out, they count heads. And people are missing. 8 more dead. And here, something more important than a number dies. The old order dies. The leadership that existed dies. And now they have to reinvent themselves inside a white tomb with fewer people, less strength, and more fear. There is no rescue. There is no food. There is no sun that warms. There is no guarantee tomorrow will not bring the same. And still, they make a silent decision. We keep going. They take parts of the plane and turn them into tools. They melt snow to make water, even though the cold burns your mouth and every swallow hurts. They improvise insulation. They play with wires to try to catch a radio signal. And above all, they prepare the only thing that can cross the Cordillera: a sleeping bag. Think about that for a second. In the middle of that white hell, sewing a sleeping bag out of pieces of the plane is not handicraft. It is manufacturing an opportunity. Because without it, walking at night means freezing to death before you ever see dawn. December 12th, 1972. The day they decide to leave. Not all of them leave, because they cannot. The mountain does not allow heroes in groups. It allows 2 or 3 bodies that can endure, and the rest must wait. So 3 set out: Parrado, Canessa, and Byzantine. 3 against a continent of snow. And here, again, the difference between a beautiful myth and reality appears. In the myth, the trek is an epic march toward freedom. In reality, it is hunger walking. It is blisters opening. It is pain in the legs that forces you to negotiate with your brain and your will at every step. It is carrying pieces of food in whatever you have, even in socks. Because anything works when you are at that extreme edge of survival. And the first great psychological blow arrives when they think they have made it. They climb for hours. They reach a summit, expecting to see Chile, expecting to see a valley, a road, a sign of life, and what they see is more mountain. Mountain, after mountain, after mountain, as if the world had gotten its ending wrong. That instant is a mental trap, because that is where many sit down and do not get back up. But they do the opposite. They adjust. And then they make a decision that seems small, but is enormous. Byzantine goes back. He turns around so the whole group will not be condemned by lack of food. And that is one of the hardest scenes in the whole story. A silent sacrifice. Because it is not movie bravery, it is painful logic. 2 keep going, 1 goes back, and the emotional weight does not show on camera, but you can feel it. Now Parrado and Canessa push on alone, and every day is a harder level. Because the body no longer has reserves, the mind becomes strange, and the landscape is so white, it steals your sense of time, until one minimal change alters everything. It is not a helicopter, it is not a flare, it is a sign of life, a river, tracks, cows, green in the distance. And when they finally see a man on horseback, the world cracks open again, all at once. But there is a problem. The river makes speaking impossible. They cannot shout loudly enough. They cannot cross. They cannot waste time. They write a message. They tie it to a stone. And they throw it. A stone carrying the difference between living and vanishing forever. The man picks it up. He reads. And for the first time in 72 days, the mountain stops being a place without witnesses. Now someone knows. Now there is a way out. But even when help appears, the storm is not over, because rescue does not come like a hand that takes everyone at once. It comes in 2 parts, because of weather, because of altitude, because of weight. The helicopters reach the site on December 22nd and finish evacuating everyone on December 23rd. Some are airlifted out, and others stay one more night. One more night in the fuselage, after knowing rescue is real, after hearing the rotors, after seeing the sky open, and that extra night is psychological torture. The way out is right there. But it is still not your turn, and when they finally get out, the second storm begins. The one outside, the press, the moral judgment, the word cannibalism flying like a stone, the trauma that does not show up in photographs, and a question with no clean answer. What happens to a community when authority disappears? Hope goes dark, and it still decides to live. Because if you reduce this story to snow and flesh, you miss what matters. What matters is that they survived because they built a real, functional society. With rules, with roles, with sacrifices, with arguments that have no good option. The miracle was not that they were rescued. The miracle was that, in the worst place imaginable, they made impossible decisions and did not destroy one another. And even today, there are cracks in the telling, whether it was 8 or 10 days of walking, depending on how you tell it. Whether the exact encounter with the muleteer was on the 20th or the 22nd. details that change in some sources, but no number changes what matters. There was a point when they stopped waiting and walked. Or, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, support the channel by subscribing. That way, we can keep bringing you new mysteries. And tell me, is there a specific story you'd like us to tell for you? Sending you a hug.